Everybody talks about gangs because it's a hot topic. Money's associated with it. Oh, it's all sexy. Let's talk about gangs and all this stuff. I don't see that as an issue in this city. I didn't see it as an issue when I was up in Richmond, but everybody talked about it. What you have here is three people who hang out, they grew up in a neighborhood together, and they get in a car together and they go do something. They steal a car, right? And you know what they do? They call themselves what street you live on?
Cedar.
They call themselves the Cedar Street Gang. They go out and do something. Oh, it's a gang, right? Cedar Street Gang. Well, then she moves, or she goes to another school. What street you live on?
Raleigh.
Raleigh. So then she hangs out with these three. Now they're the Raleigh Street Gang, the same people, right? If I had a list in here of gang members, it's all the same names and they change their gang affiliation about every other week. I don't think we have a huge gang problem. I think we got some neighborhood issues where people in this same neighborhood may get mad at this neighborhood. Now there may be some individuals that call themselves, but I ain't got 20 people walking up down the street that are Bloods, and I ain't got 20 people walking up down the street that are Crips and shooting at each other. What I got is young people that can't control their anger. They pick up a firearm where 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you and I would have gotten in a fist fight and played basketball or baseball the next day on the field. Today we're picking up firearms, right, and shooting at each other. That's what we have here. Since I've been here, 9 months, I ain't seen anybody arrested for being in a gang. Right, what happens is you commit some crime, auto theft, homicide, robbery, and because somewhere somebody identified me as a gang member, I get the 20 years for robbery, the 30 years for homicide, the 15 years for auto theft, and somewhere along the line somebody said I'm a gang member, right? So I get 5 years enhancement added onto my sentence for the crime I committed. That's the kind of stuff we have going on here. I don't buy into we've got all these gangs. I think when I first got here, they told me, oh, we got about 180 gangs running around here. That ain't happening. Anyway, I have not had a homicide. Everybody here is familiar with the city, right? I have not had a homicide south of Mercury Boulevard. You follow me? I have not had a homicide south of Mercury Boulevard. Traditionally, that's where we have most of our violence. Haven't happened. Now, I do got some issues going on though. There are about 5 big things focusing on law enforcement today, and I would say they affect our department as well. I've got some issues with overdose, drug addiction. I had 24 people shot and killed in this city last year. I had 33 people that died from heroin. Some type of drug overdose. Most of it's heroin with fentanyl that's inside the heroin. 33 people. That's a lot. We got to do something different. What we're doing is not working. I'm not sure it's a police issue, but somebody's got to step forward and do something. I can't just continue to let that go. There's kind of 2 philosophies with heroin. I'm going to pick on you for a minute. So I'm just going to use 2 cities. Because Newport News, we got to make a decision what we're going to do. In Richmond, Virginia, if she overdoses on heroin, doesn't die but overdoses, we would come to her and say, hey, we hope you get some help. Here's the flyers and brochures. Here's all these different services. We want you to take advantage of it.
Thank you.
You know what percentage take advantage of it? 3%. That means if 100 people overdose, 3 people are going on their own to get treatment. 3%. Chesterfield County. Anybody familiar with Chesterfield County? Just south of Richmond. It's the exact opposite. If you overdose in Chesterfield, and if you overdose in Hampton, you get arrested. And then you're going to go see the judge. And the judge says, I can put you in, I'm going to order you to go get mandatory treatment, or I'm going to order you 30 days in jail. You decide. If they do the treatment and they complete the program, the case is dismissed. But it's court ordered, right? That's about 75, 80%. That's a big difference. Now, I am not trying to use the jails in this city to address addiction, but I am tired of my officers going into a bathroom at McDonald's or going into back alleys and picking up dead bodies because they've overdosed of heroin. Those are people's family members, their friends, sons and daughters. Hell, we went to one house over the weekend, was on Madison Avenue, and there were 2 people overdosed in there. That's crazy. What we're doing is not working, so I got to change some things. I'm leaning towards the Hampton model.
Drug court work.
They call it drug court, and I met with Judge Fisher. I always say his name wrong. Fisher. And he told me he would be fully supportive of that. And he's the head circuit court judge in the city. We have to do something different. What we're doing right now is not working. It's not working. Everybody sits around and we talk about it. Police department's going to do this, and health department's going to do this, and human services is going to do that, and bodies keep overdosing, keep seeing deaths. We got to do something different. So we're going to try that. Yes, ma'am.
So if we don't have organized gangs, but we have a big drug problem, are these just little individuals or
Little
what
groups.
is the organization
To
of
me,
the
I call them
drug?
group.
No.
We don't, from my experience, now these guys have been here longer. Me walking in the door, I don't see like a captain and 2 lieutenants and all these people around here that, you know, I'm not saying that stuff doesn't exist, right? But I say when you start talking stuff like that, bigger levels, you've got people like in Norfolk and you've got people in Portsmouth and Newport News that might be all tied in. But I'm not seeing that kind of stuff here. What I'm seeing is neighborhoods that are beefing with neighborhoods, right? You live in Ridley Circle, you live in Marshall Courts, and we don't like it when we see each other walking around in our neighborhoods. But we have changed our strategies. We are very, very proactive on violence in this city. Traffic enforcement is up about 20%. That is a big deterrent to crime. People walking in the neighborhoods, community walks, that's up. Our HIP teams, or what we would call little drug teams, back in the precincts, because we've decreased narcotics, which work citywide, but they're not accountable to anybody. And now if I put 6 officers in a precinct, now they're accountable to the neighborhoods, right? Not just they're out there. Now they're accountable to neighborhoods. So that's, when I see that, I tell you, we had presentations today, and some of the firearms that we're taking out of people's cars, that's crazy. But what I see is groups running together. They change their name every now and then, but it's neighborhood groups. I don't see this being wide based, and I can tell you, we ain't got no 180 gangs running around Newport News. That just ain't happening.
So the drugs don't work that way either. They're not.
They
they're not
can, but I
working.
don't see that. I see four or five people that want to sell drugs on this neighborhood, 4 or 5 people on this. Now, these 4 or 5 and these 4 or 5 that are selling drugs, right? They may compete for customers, right? And I know you sell drugs over here. I don't want you coming over to my neighborhood and trying to set up drugs. We might have some beef there. But I don't have, most of the shootings that 4 homicides. Self-defense, domestic violence, argument over robbery, probably of a firearm, and upset that somebody's hanging out in their neighborhood. None of that's gun and drug related.
You're not focusing much on the firearms. What can we do about firearms in the hands of so many people?
So the strategy I talk about, traffic enforcement, drug arrest, search warrant, rollback search warrants. The last 2 years here, well, I'll tell you what, in Richmond, which is a bigger city and more violent. I did 25 years there. I left there as the assistant chief. Richmond takes about 650 firearms off the street a year in Richmond, Virginia. The last 2 years here, guess how many firearms take off the street? About the same number. 638, 649. The same number. That's concerning to me. So when I look every Monday, when we look at crime, we look at is crime up or down? Is our overdoses up or down? Are our drug seizures up or down? We also look at number of firearms. And I think our firearm number is about 30, you might know more than me, Eric, 20, 30% higher than what it was this time last year. We've got about 40 or 50 more firearms off the street this year than last year. I think we'll probably end up taking close to 100 more firearms this year. I predict 750 because of the proactive work that we're doing, because citizens in a neighborhood, if I live here, if I live in your neighborhood and I keep firearms here, people in their neighborhood know, they know what's going on, prostitution, drug selling, firearms, and you never call, I'm calling more friends over to hang out. But if I would try to set up shop in this neighborhood, they call on me all the time. These 2 ladies, they call on me all the time. The police come and talk to me, they stop me, this neighborhood's hot, I ain't gonna hang out over here, I'm gonna hang out over here. Citizens are calling in more often. The crime tip line is up than it has been before. Those type things. So we do focus on firearms, and I will ask them. Matter of fact, there's a whole slide. We do a CompStat presentation where we look at these numbers. It talks about how many guns you've taken off the street, how much drugs, how much money's been seized. Usually those things are interlocked together. We look today, I think that each precinct's taken right around 15 or 20 firearms off the street this year. That's just the 3 precincts. That's not talking about narcotics, traffic, and all the other things. But we do focus on those firearms a lot. And we keep track, then we also trace them. And then the casings, I'm not one of the technical people, but when you fire, it ejects, a round goes out in the casing, right? We can NIBIN, and I have no idea what it stands for. NIBIN, but what it does, it tests that, and it will link that casing, firearms, right to other things, to other incidents that occur. So we can tell that this gun that was involved in this shooting was also involved in that shooting and that shooting a year ago. And you start figuring out, well, who's in those neighborhoods, who do we look at, and it kind of deciphers. No, we do, absolutely. What else?